welcome to Comic Books and You. Today we're going to go through Indigo Children Part 2. I'm not sure if it's actually a six-part series or if this is going to be a longer ongoing one. Image has some weird series like no one that has 10 issues run. We're going to see when this ends or if I stop buying it after a certain number, which is always a possibility because sometimes things stop keeping my interest. And like in this case here, it switches style too much and I start disliking what I'm reading. Let's get into it. We're meeting Fred here, and Fred is a big money genius architect who works for big businesses, designing their offices and their skyscrapers. So he's a big money guy. He's plagued by nightmares almost every night, seeing a world getting destroyed, and he has a lot of mental issues. He has to go see a therapist and take meds for paranoia and other things. It's kind of making his life miserable, but he's trying his best to live his best life. We see him here. He seems like a fairly ordinary bloke overall. Of course, it's not really paranoia when people are actually spying on you in your own apartment behind a collapsed wall. Fred is Indigo 2. That's a name the government is giving to him. And with his indigo powers, he's able to create and build different things out of blocks. Very Green Lantern-y kind of power, but not as efficient. It doesn't, shoot beams or anything. It's made to build blocks, and he has limited telekinesis as well. I haven't seen him use anything else at this point. You see him here building a wall between him and some SWAT officers. Alexei is more prevalent in this issue as well. He is called Indigo Prime in this book. He has superior telekinetic and telepathic abilities. We see him stop bullets, toss soldiers around, SWAT around like ragdolls, and redirecting all sorts of things. And we see him use his power to clear a brainwashing attempt that was done on Fred. His powers are rather powerful. He escaped the town that's not a town by killing all of the security, more or less. I'm not sure why you had to wait for Donovan to show up for that to happen. Honestly, not sure in this case. In the epilogue of this, we see, I'll call them the G-Men. They have names. They're various people from the political and seems to be the intelligence agencies around the world. They're discussing what they're going to do with the Indigo Children. They want to bring them back under control and are ready to do so with them dead or alive. And it seems that one of them, Indigo 5, is in Japan and is actually collaborating with them. We'll probably see as the story moves along. So let's go through the story real quick. So meet Fred. Big money architect, has great ideas, very creative, mixes different genres and styles together to build something new. Very, very in demand as well. Fortunately, due to his issues socializing and his issues with slight paranoia, he keeps meeting with his therapist who keeps reminding him to take his medication, even though he doesn't want to because they make him feel a bit wonky. And he sees his therapist in X-ray vision there in purple. Well, indigo, to be precise. Things are not the best for Fred, but he's living his best life. Things are going south for him. He sees more and more things in indigo, flashbacks from his past that he doesn't quite remember, including that shot on the Sphinx there. And he seems to have a mental breakdown in the middle of the street. So a bit of a bad time. He gets ready to go to bed, but rather than taking his medication, he just flushes them down the toilet. And as that happens, he also notices that through one of his condo apartment wall, a bunch of men are monitoring him on a computer. He opens the compartment, and the two guys that are sitting there start shooting at him. He deflects the bullets using telekinesis. A whole SWAT team shows up to stop him, and Alexis rescues him by busting through the window like the Kool-Aid man. Fred uses his power to use building blocks to block the SWAT guys around and trap them, while Alexei basically throws them around like ragdolls and seems to be breaking them apart. Fred wonders what's really going on. He doesn't remember his past or the fact that he is an Indigo Children. Alexei uses his telepathic powers to remove the brainwashing that Fred was under. Donovan and Sergey is contact, go up the elevator and meet up with the two Indigos, and they then tell them that they've shut down the power and that they're sending a larger strike team to take them out. Fred takes our heroes together and go to the roof, and he builds a bridge between two of the buildings so they can run away that way. Not sure why they just don't, take care of all the soldiers. It's not like it looks very hard for them. Probably Donovan and Sergey would have had the hardest time doing that. But hey, that's how it is. We are then given an epilogue where we see the politicians and intelligence community assets discussing the situation, deciding that they need to handle the situation as quickly as possible. This is a shorter book than issues one. Issues one was 1.5 size of a normal issue. This is a regular floppy issue. It still has a decent amount of material in it, but it is much shorter than the issues one. That is for sure. The cover for this is very simple and not super attractive. We see Fred, the color indigo, and a bunch of blocks flying over him. Kind of represents what we see in the book, but that's not a cover that would attract me as a reader. Even with a more refined sensibility, not sure this would be really interesting. Just seeing that on a rack wouldn't attract me, that's for sure. It's definitely not a cover that's as good as issues one. The paper quality on this is good, just like issue one. It's a step up from the standard, but a step down from premium comics. ISOM as an example, or Codename Ric Flair, that we had to delete from the channel due to a copyright claim. The color here is varied, nice overall. We've got those weird indigo panels breaking things up, and they clearly show like this is the past, this is the present, this is how they see things. This is how things are normally. So it is a good way of using color in this particular book. There's no ads in there except for the last 2 pages. One's the same from the same author we had from the previous book, Youth, Olympia. It's only a teenage romance. Those three, I know it's only a teenage romance. I've heard of it. I haven't read it. Might be something I'm interested in if Indigo Children keeps going. The other one is an ad for an image art cover that's being released. The Dark Room, I have no idea what that is. It looks weird, which is not bad. Not saying that it's bad, but I haven't seen that in any locations yet, and I haven't seen any ads or much promotion for it. That's just how it ends up being, unfortunately, with comics these days. Artistic merit. The panel work here is still a bit weak comparable to issues one. It uses real estate fairly well, but it's nothing fantastic until you get to some very specific pages and panels. The full brainwash clearing scene there is very good. Got a lot of things going on, and the way it's set up does give us a good idea of, well, what's going on here with the de-brainwashing. So that one is pretty good. Same here with the panels with the current day and the flashbacks for Fred. This particular page is pretty good as well. We've got basic flashbacks, but it actually is split in a way to have the feeling of the character. Like he is breaking down at that point and he's having a hard time. Things are a little more defined in this issue compared to the first one. Characters have more definition. You've got more lines, more inking. They look better in general. Even here, the topless scene looks a little bit better. I would like more muscle definition. I would like more character look here, but it works fairly well. Same with the image at the bottom of getting rid of the pills. This looks fairly good as well. We have more facial expressions in this one. It's less muted than it was in the original issue one. But what we have a lot of is rage, anger, discomfort in the case of Fred with his mental breakdowns, and this weird panel of murderous glee with Alexei. This is one of the panels that kind of make me feel weird, thinking that he is supposed to be our main character. We'll talk more about that later. There's an odd panel where Sergei Donovan's contact in Russia is holding his gun in a fairly weird way. I mean, this is an assault rifle type weapon, not just a small submachine gun or something like that. He's holding it at arm's length, which would be absolutely impossible to control even with a foregrip like this. Someone who knows more about guns can probably talk to me and give me more details, but personally, when I'm shooting my airsoft rifles, I brace them. Even though they're just airsoft and they don't kick, or don't kick as much in the case of a gas blowback, I still brace my rifle because that's how I get a good aim. So this particular panel looks off to me here, and that's where Alexei is basically killing off the security at his compound where he was kept. The SWAT and police force look good, decent definition. They look very good. I don't have a clean picture of it, so that's why I've never not let one ear in the video. The backgrounds, however, are really good. I feel like the backgrounds are far more defined than our characters, which is a tad bit weird, but it works really well, and I'm happy with how they're coming out. Story elements. Well, there's a few things we need to talk about, and most of them are not positive, unfortunately. Not a huge fan of Donovan being turned into a minor supporting character in this book. He was a great point of view character in the first book, and it worked fairly well. He was an everyman journalist in a thing that was bigger than him. Here, of course, we're wanting to introduce Fred, who's also kind of an everyman, but once we see him with his power and his everything, it breaks that connection we have with him. While Donovan, we add a connection with him in the first book. In this one here, he's got maybe 4 lines. Overall, Sergei has 2. Not the greatest, in my opinion. The old bit with Fred meeting his therapist and getting rid of his meds kind of reminds me of the fourth Matrix movie. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. That movie was rather terrible, but that particular part of the movie was actually the good part. I think it was a useless movie. It wasn't made for anyone. It was literally a rights retainer, I believe. That's all it really was. There was that part where Neo was trying to live in the Matrix and add Neil Patrick Harris as the therapist, medication, all those things, keeping him in the Matrix and him breaking out pretty much in the same way as Fred here. Not sure if that's what they wanted to show or if it's just a similar idea they had. I'm not sure when this book was actually written. That's part of the problem sometimes with those comics. They were written 5, 6, 7 years in the past. They finally got published, finally got someone to draw what ideas they had. It could be a pure coincidence, or it could be a reference to that movie as well. Alexei basically allowing any of the other Indigo to remember their past. That's a shortcut for the story. I understand why they're doing it because it would be complicated to, find Fred, get Fred back up to speed, find the next Indigo, get him back up to speed, find the next one, get her back up to speed. You just have telepathic contact between the two, bang, it's done. And since he has powerful telepathic abilities, it works. Not in a way I really love, but it works. One thing I didn't like here is that we're switching from paranormal thriller to full on superhero action in about 2 pages. It goes from 0 to 100 in those 2 pages. You barely add any violence in the first book. You had a plane blowing up and Alexei saving everyone. That's violence, but in a bit of a different way. And in this one, we're just killing SWAT, killing military officers left and right. It's not gradual, so it just is very jarring to me. It's a shift that I don't really like. I would have preferred this to remain more of a paranormal thriller and less of a superhero book. We're supposed to understand that the Indigos are here to help humanity and save us from the dialogues we have with LXC, with what they're saying in the different things, how Mars was destroyed. But they're going around killing tons of people. Kind of sits weird with me. I have a feeling we'd be viewing them as the bad guys if we were reading the book from the other side, which it might be something we see later on, or it might even be what it actually is. Theories are part of comic book reading, I guess. I try not to enter my theories in these videos, but that's one that I have here. That maybe they're not as good as we think they are. The evil, secretive government organization, trademark, patent pending, is such a cliche that I'm really tired of it. It's always in the dark. It's always they're mysterious. Yes, it comes from very old tropes, but this really keeps going back to X-Files in my mind, which I understand in some cases, but the fact that it's overused now kind of gets on my nerve. I understand that the previous section was basically a lot of gripes, but I do admit the pacing here is really good. The thriller part with Fred at the start is really nice. We've got a setup, we've got him breaking down, and we've got him breaking out all at the same time. It works really well. The 2 pages of his descent into madness is just long enough for us to feel that he's not in control of what's going on. He's not in control of his life, even though that's what he's trying to do while being a successful architect. Then we switch to the superhero action part of the comic, and it's smart small with only Fred fighting 2 police officers that are not well equipped. Then it goes big with the SWAT and all the psychic power usage. And then it takes it home with our heroes fleeing rather than staying and fighting. So we can move the story along. So this is good pacing overall through the entire book. I don't like many of the story elements in the book, but I can't blame them on how they wrote it and how they drove it forward. Issue 1 was really good, and this one hurts my brain. The premise is good, the setup is good, but the climax with all the superhero action in it really hurts it. It should have started smaller. Probably Fred fighting the 2 unarmored police officer there. Alexei coming in rather than busting in, explaining what's going on. Donovan and Sergei may be fighting a few armored police officer, and Fred and Alexei saving them, then running away. That's how I would have done it. Like I said, we're told that the Indigo Children are there to fix everything, but this might really well might be a case where we realize that they're the bad guys, and Donovan, Sergei, and any other human sidekicks that they end up having realize it and need to do something about it. This would be a very interesting twist on that form and that genre. Distribution on this had been quite weird. They didn't have any at my local comic shop. He ordered some and didn't receive any. He had to reorder it, and I'm supposed to get it this week for issue 3. Kind of weird. We haven't seen any second printing, third printing of issues 1 and 2. None that I've seen, at least. I maybe could dig just to see, but this means it's not selling as well as No One, as an example, from Image as well. Or it might mean that they printed a longer run and they're still going through the inventory. This is a book that I really need to see where it's going to go if I want to keep recommending it. Issues 1 was a book I could recommend. Issues 2 makes it harder for me to do that. Kind of weird, I understand. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. Keep on reading comic, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep analyzing them, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.